Okay, if everyone will take their seats, we are going to begin. First of all, I want to welcome you on behalf of the Human Rights Commission. This is a very special night for all of us. It's an annual event, and we're very pleased that you could be here. And I want to tell you that thanks to WCAT, this event is being recorded, so those who couldn't get here tonight, who are not as comfortable coming out, will be able to watch it in the comfort of their homes. Okay, now please turn off anything that beeps, whistles, rings, so that we don't have any disturbances during the panel discussion. Okay, and then the other housekeeping item is, after the presentation, we have some refreshments in the cafeteria so conversations can continue. Now, we do something traditionally before all of our programs. We have a land acknowledgement. The Wakefield Human Rights Commission acknowledges that the lands we now call Wakefield are the ancestral homelands of the Massachusetts people who have been the caretakers of unceded land for centuries and will continue to be for centuries to come. We are settlers. The Massachusetts people have been tirelessly striving for human rights, even in the face of land theft, genocide, and forced removal. The work we do to build a more unified, equal, and diverse community grows out of the efforts, leadership, and guidance of countless Native communities. We commit to honoring this continued Native activism as we do our work. In doing so, we dedicate time like this in our meetings throughout the year to help educate those in the community about the Native people of Massachusetts, past, present, and in their work towards the future. We stand with the Mass Indigenous Legislative Agenda in celebrating Indigenous Peoples Day in place of Columbus Day. And now I'm going to turn this over completely to tonight's moderator, who is Jess Suchik, another member of the Human Rights Commission. Jess, it's all yours.
Hello, all. Let me make sure that my phone is off so I can be a good citizen here. So welcome all. I'm going to first say that we've got a wonderful panel tonight, and thank you so much to all of you all for showing up and coming here, and thanks to you all for being here. Without further ado, I'm going to bring them onto stage and say, just come on and sit down. Come on in, sit down. We had one speaker this evening who we were alerted to at the last minute that they were not going to be able to be here, but the reason why is that they were invited to be at the State of the Union address tonight. So pretty good excuse. You know, we're not hurt, but that was Commander Shelby Nitkin was invited and is going to be recognized and introduced by President Biden. So. But fortunately, Wakefield has an embarrassment of riches when it comes to impressive women, and so we have a replacement panelist who is here tonight. So I will begin by telling you just who I am. Jess Sudich. I'm on the HRC. I've been in Wakefield now for a couple of years. It's lovely. You all are lovely. Thank you. And I've got a toddler with my wife, and so we are tired. But we're doing all right, and I work by day. I work for video games. I work for the video game industry by way of television. Once I was a television writer, and then I made my way to video games. But none of it was planned. It was a wayward path that I took, and probably by spending a lot of time doing comedy and having a day job that I didn't care about, and then one day I realized I had to grow up. So I am going to start. I'm going to have each of our panelists start by giving a little introduction. If you could say who you are, a little bit, a short sentence about what you do, and then also let me know, did you plan to do it? Is this your plan A? Is this your plan B, C, D? How did you get to that? And was it your childhood dream, or was it a surprise? You can just, for this, you can start. I'll start with you since you're here.
Hi, my name is Amy Applebaum. I've been in Wakefield for, about 20 years. It's gone by really fast. I am a principal and a managing owner of an engineering company called McPhail Associates. We specialize in geotechnical and environmental engineering. If you don't know what that is, it's because we're mostly hiding out underground. We characterize soil, bedrock, groundwater, and we help, as consulting engineers, help support the construction industry in and around New England and Boston. I went to UMass Amherst for my undergrad and my graduate degree. I met my husband there in a ground-penetrating radar class. It was very, very exciting.
Excuse me?
From that point, you asked if I always knew, is this my plan A? It's been my plan A, B, C, D, E. I think I've started and thought about quitting and started again 1,000 times over. Mm-hmm. And I think that's mostly because I kept in the same company that I've been working with for 23 years now. I kept finding new ways to reinvent myself there, and I always found the freedom to do that in the same company, and I think that's very, very rare, and I feel really fortunate to be able to have that be part of my story. I also am a fearless adventurer, as my friend Catherine, who invited me to be here, knows. I have found that's been like a true freedom of my spirit to find out that it's not only my career and the company that I own that helps make me feel whole, it's my entire life. And getting into the mountains is so truly important to me. If you like to hike, send me a message, get my number, we will get out there and enjoy that together. I'm very happy to be here and truly humbled that you would like to listen to my story tonight.
Thank you, Amy. That's a big act to follow. Hi, everyone. My name is Ariane. I'm going to follow some of your script. I like how you started that out for us. I've been in Wakefield for 15 years. We moved here when I was very expecting my first. I have 3 kiddos, a sophomore, 7th grader, and a 4th grader, so I am got the full lay of the land of Wakefield Public Schools at this point. BU grad, and no, my path to where I am today has been very circuitous, I would say. I am currently a partner at a venture capital firm in Boston. We are early stage healthcare investors. I think most relevant to what this topic of conversation is about today is to share with you, in case you weren't aware, that there's probably about $150 billion of capital deployed. That was 2023 stat in venture capital. 1% of that went to women founders last year. That's kind of crazy. So the secret sauce of my firm, SIA Ventures, is that not only are we healthcare investors hoping to build great companies that ultimately scale and change outcomes for a lot of Americans, we are also thinking very deeply about women and BIPOC founders. So a little impact spin to the work that we do. And super proud to tell you that about half of our portfolio of companies is led by female CEOs. Also super honored to be here and be part of this conversation today. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Afra Bukataya. I'm currently a junior at Wakefield Memorial High School, and I've been in Wakefield since around 3rd grade. I don't have any kids so far, but nor have I been to college, but I have a couple ideas about what I want to do with my life, and every day it changes. I really want to do everything, but currently my fixation is on psychology, and hopefully my dream school that I will get into, hopefully, is Northeastern. And I really just want to go into psychology just to help people in my community, since it's there's not a lot of people that kind of represent in that community. In terms of has this always been my choice? No, but I've always wanted to go into science since I was a kid. But I guess maybe it'll change next month. But that's currently my plan. But yeah.
Good evening, buenas noches. My name is Jarlenis Villaman. I've been living in Wakefield for 3 years. I was pregnant, looking for a home, and I got blessed here in Wakefield. Very excited and happy with my 2 kiddos and my husband, Jeff, who's here tonight. I graduated from College of the Holy Cross in 2014, and from there, I got my master's at Suffolk University, a master's in public administration with a nonprofit management. I always been that type of person that liked to make a change, work in the community, be impactful, and that's what led me to be working now for the governor's office. I've been working for the governor now since she was Attorney General for over 6 years. I've been working at the state. I started at the Attorney General's office as a Director of Community Engagement, and now I'm blessed to work as a Director of Community Affairs at the governor's office, where I'm leading a lot of projects that comes with equity and inclusion through the Office of Access and Opportunity. I'm doing a lot of overseeing of various advisory councils that the governor's office have regarding Latino Empowerment Advisory and the Black Empowerment Advisory Council. I'm also very blessed that I got named now to be the office language coordinator, where I'm managing and overseeing every language coordinator in the state through the Executive Order 615 on language accessibility. And this is an ongoing project right now in my office. And my office is very innovative. We're always in the community and state, so I'm always learning all the beautiful towns and cities here in the state of Massachusetts, and also thinking about various outreach initiatives within the secretariat. So I work with every single secretariat and their state agencies when they're having various initiatives that are impactful in the community. So they come to my office, and I advise them in making sure to reach every community, to making sure we continue to make impactful and work in an equity lens as one of the governor majority goals since she started office.
Thank you. So my name is Roseanne Trianfi-Mezzucchelli. I'm the stand-in, so please. I got asked yesterday, so it's cool. So I too was in the military. It was definitely not the path that I chose. I did it because I was forced to. I'm first generation born here from Italy, and my house growing up was very Italian, and I was the oldest of 5, and my father one time, when I was in high school, he said, "We're going to Italy this summer and you're going to meet your husband." I'm like, wrong answer. That is definitely not happening. So as soon as I turned 18, which was in March, I went and raised my hand for the United States Army. Yep, and I went home and I told my father, and he and I got into an actual fist fight. But I wasn't afraid, and that was my problem. I was never afraid of anybody or anything. And so I went in the Army, and then I came home, and I was in law enforcement. I was an MP first, and then I came back to join the reserves as a combat MP, and a directive came down, no more females in combat MP units. So I went into the investigative field, where I stayed for 21 years. And I'm a mom of 4, but then I had many, many, many kids coming in and out of my house, broken homes, whatnot. They always came to my house, because I cooked. I cooked every night. So, I'm a director of veteran services for Melrose, Wakefield, and Saugus now. I was in Winthrop for 9 years. That's where I live. I'm a true Revere girl, though, through and through. Not then Revere. And the reason why I never thought I would be a veteran service officer. I was always going into the law field. In fact, I didn't finish my bachelor's degree till all of my kids were grown. And then I decided, and I went to school with college seniors, which was eye-opening. Mm-hmm. So the professors were younger than I was, and one of the professors used to come in high, and he walked by me, and I'm like, seriously, dude? What are you doing? So, and I ended up teaching a couple of classes because, according to my fellow students, I lived through most of world history since 1945. And for the anatomy and physiology, I was also teaching CPR at Regis College and first aid, and I was a first responder. So my instructor said, "I'm going to be out for the week. Can you take the class?" I'm like, "Sure. Do I get anything from it?" And he goes, "Well, you're going to get an A anyway. So what do I'm paying for it. I better get an A." So the reason why I worked in a law office, I was a paralegal, I was an investigator. The reason why I got into the veteran service field was when I came home from a deployment, I went and saw my veteran service officer, and he told me that I wasn't a veteran. And I'm like, okay, because I didn't serve in Nam. And I said, I'm sorry if I was born a couple years too late. And he said, who are you? And I said, I'm your replacement, pal. And I was several years later. So I got into the field, and I love it. I get to help my brothers and sisters in arms every single day and their surviving family members. And the military has gone through a lot. I was threatened up until I was a couple years ago that I would be recalled because it was so short-handed of female agents. And I said, I'm going, sure. And my kids were like, you can't leave us now. I'm like, yeah, I can, actually. You're all old. So, but they didn't, it was okay. But I love what I do. I hear a lot of tough stories. Help a lot of younger veterans who just can't suck it up and move on, which was what I was taught. And it was actually beaten into us in basic training. But now they don't teach anymore. They don't do that anymore. So anybody who wants to join the military, feel free. It's a lot easier now than it was when I went through, and probably some of your elders. But I love what I do every day, and because I get to help people. So thank you for allowing me to be here.
Well, we are really lucky to have you in Wakefield, I can tell you that. Hi, my name's Julie Smith-Galvin. I'm a town councilor here in Wakefield. I moved here when I was pregnant with my first one, so I see a theme going on, and it was a good place to raise families here in Wakefield. That baby's now 23, and my youngest is 21. And I have spent my career working in renewable energy, which was not my plan. My plan when I was Afra's age was, the only plan I had was to go to Peace Corps. That's all I wanted to do. I wanted to work in international work, and I decided that I would go to Peace Corps, and from there I would kind of figure out what my path was, whatever I ended up doing down there. So I was sent down as a youth development officer, which just meant that I had spent 10 years in 4-H. I grew up in Maryland, near farms. And I ended up working in solar energy, putting on 50-watt panels on unelectrified areas along the Haitian-Dominican border, and just really fell in love with the energy industry. The first thing I learned to say in Spanish was "Se fue la luz," there goes the lights. And, you know, and everything just, in the Dominican Republic, there were lots of unscheduled outages, and people would just go on with their lives. And it really struck me how energy is so critical wherever you live. And so I came back, and I just have spent my whole career working in renewable energy. I work for 2 of the largest publicly traded companies in the world. And now I left there about 8 years ago and started my own company. I say I'm an accidental entrepreneur. I never wanted to have my own company, but it just turned out to be the right time. It allowed me not to travel as much, to be home with my kids, and now I help startup companies get started with their strategic communications and public affairs activities and break into the industry. So I'm really happy and honored to be here today with all of these people. Rose said she's not a comedian, but I think she is. We had this debate.
I think
so
she said, yeah.
We're going to have a lot of laughs and learn a lot today, I think.
Yeah, she... If you want to do our storytelling show, my wife and I run a storytelling show. It's sort of like, it's like the gateway to comedy. So I can lead you down that path if you want to do something else unexpected. So we have some mics out here. I'm going to do kind of a casual conversation with you. I'm going to ask some questions, but if you can, of course, be generous mic passers, as you already have been. So I myself did not expect to get into television, and I didn't expect to get into video games, in part because I didn't really have any mentors that directly called me out and said, you got something, kid. And I didn't have parents who knew about those industries, so I kind of chanced my way into things. But I'm wondering, for mentors, did you have any strong mentors in your lives, and what role did they play in your career path? For this, anybody who has like a big answer can just jump forward, and then if you hear something that brings another thought out, please feel free to follow the conversation, and we'll just go from there. It can be real casual and friendly.
Excuse me? Oh, I can start because I have like a really like kind of personal story to this. So I think for forever, I've kind of been at my like local mosque, and Also there's been just like a community of girls regularly that like meet, like I think for us it was almost every Friday. And there was this one, Saida, I still like go and see her regularly at the mosque, but she kind of inspired me to kind of create my own kind of religious community club. So, which I started really recently, and it's kind of been like really inspiring to kind of mentor other girls in just like how to, just like topics, controversial topics, and just like how to uplift yourself as like a woman in our community, but also like how to, like in the future, kind of be a leader in your community also. So that's just like a story that immediately popped into my head.
Yeah, that's great. I think I like it also that you have a mentor and that you've already found ways to mentor others. Both sides of that is really important.
Yeah, I was really lucky.
Yeah.
So my mentors were my mom and my nannies. Italian women are very good at letting Italian men think that they rule the roost, but it's the Italian women that run everything. We keep the house, we keep everything going, everybody is in the right place at the right time, everybody has everything that they need to succeed, and the moms, the women in my family were very strong women. They were all house women. They didn't really work outside the home, but that home was, it was there. So I was very blessed to have those strong women in my family. So.
I was going to say, similar story to like I can actually credit every single twist of my career, which I didn't really share enough of before, sorry about that, to a mentor. So I was at BU, I was studying accounting. I wasn't really sure what I was going to be when I grew up and what I was going to do when I graduated. And my accounting professor said to me, have you thought about going into public, right? Ernst & Young, Deloitte & Touche, Price Waterhouse. There's all these great firms. If you don't really know what you want to do, go explore them. I was pretty late in the game. I had spent my college summers like waitressing and working in retail, and everyone, a lot of my peers and folks who had mentors perhaps in their families, the way that I didn't have, we didn't know professional, jobs that way, were like, they had done internships since they were like freshmen, summer freshman year. So anyway, that was my sort of path into Ernst & Young. I climbed the corporate ladder for 11 years, had an amazing run, thought I'd leave. I had 3 kids at the time. I said, I'm going to take a year off and figure out what I want to be when I grow up. And one of my clients called, another mentor to me and said, hey, we're starting this company. We kind of need some finance help. I know you got your hands full. Just come think about doing this part-time. That started the next chapter of my career, like being in finance roles for early stage companies, and then full circle to where I am today. A colleague of mine from my Ernst & Young days, one of my clients, called and said, I've started this firm. You'd be great. Would you come give it a go? And here I am 3 years later. I hope that it's the last chapter of my career, but a mentor along the way. And so I'm always telling my kids and their friends, like, seek it out the way that I didn't know to when I was young, because it's been so impactful to my life journey and everything that I do. So.
For me, mentorship is a value. They are like your basketball coach, telling you step by step how to be a better player, how to key your way into making life choices. And when I first came into this country, I grew up in a single household. My mother, coming into this country from the Dominican Republic, we're like, oh my God, it's America. I have to learn this language. Where's my pathway? But I was blessed enough. I grew up in Cambridge. I was blessed enough that I had a mentor in my life who told me about even the high school I attended, which was the Cristo Rey High School, that they're now in Boston. It's a Catholic high school that you work half of your tuition with a company that pays. So I was very young working at Ernst & Young, Draper Laboratory, the city of Cambridge, various opportunity. But that particular mentor changed my life completely because it allowed me to give me access access to opportunity that a lot of times immigrant families don't have, and that I had to learn my ways through to now open the doors to be a mentor myself. So when I graduated from Holy Cross, I immediately became a mentor. I feel Holy Cross has a strong alumni network, and I wanted to also impact other students who are in college and even at Suffolk University and now in my job in the state, because I want to be the woman who opens door for other and give accessibility just like my mentor did for me. And one particular important thing why my mentor was such a key aspect of my life and being a life changer maker in my life is because I co-founded an international nonprofit agency back in the Dominican Republic called Lazos al Futuro, where we focused a lot on education, cutting the barriers for students, giving the opportunity, and adding that mentorship component. Because back home, girls, if I stay back home, I wouldn't have the opportunity that I have today. And I want to give those opportunities to young students, especially girls as well, opening those doors. And I added those mentorship because I believe in the power of mentorship. And even right now, as the mother of two, I'm always thinking about how I can get new mentors, because motherhood does change your life. It's a blessing, but you have to start new. You have to start loving yourself, balancing your career, and I'm always looking for new mentors and inspirational key. And actually, I want to acknowledge somebody in the room who opened the door for me to be in this panel today, Town Councilor Maureen. But I think you are such an inspirational, especially for us colored women, and I truly, truly inspired by your story, and I'm thankful that you told somebody else, you're opening the door, told somebody, hey, I know Jarlenis, and this is why I'm today here, to make sure I inspire others through my story, so thank you.
I guess I just want to add that I think we've all had great mentors, and I did too. An energy very male-centric, and we'll talk about the different industries. My mentors were a lot of men, and I think that it's okay to have men as mentors too. I just want to say that I had 3 or 4, one in particular who really was just getting people into renewable energy. He lived in the Dominican Republic. And he has built this whole kind of group of people, and we're now, mid to late career, and we're bringing up those below us. So while my very early stage mentors were men, and they were great, I've really then tried to pass that on and get more women into this male-dominated. So I guess I just want to say, especially to the young people, mentors kind of can be men, women, young, old. It doesn't matter. Just kind of always be on the lookout. Like Ariana said, be on the lookout for them.
It's the helpers. I feel like that's, if you ever meet somebody who's a helper, you will know. And the mentors and the helpers are, wherever they come from, they are wonderful because they'll help you find your path.
I feel like I have these helpers right here. I'm like, I think we got some mentorship that we could start to talk through. Similar to what Julie said, working in a very male-dominated industry, that was what I fell into, was having a male mentor. Half my height, he rolled his eyes every time we would go out networking together, and I would wear my high heels. But what I appreciated most, looking back, one of the things that he did that was truly instrumental in my career development was when he would find on the projects, the development projects that we were working on, when he would find other really strong women who were in leadership positions on those projects, he would push me to get involved. Probably recognizing that just being a male on his own, it probably wasn't enough in giving me the full perspective of what he needed. So he had this really, I think, this great wisdom to realize that we had this great relationship, but there was more that I needed to be offered. And that set me up for a tremendous amount of success to be able to be in that environment, very young, with all women, working in construction and development, and surrounded by these other women. And it became a really magnetic process. And that once this teaming started to be part of our development circle, more and more women were coming to join our band. And it became really powerful. And now this woman in particular, she's the president of the Commercial Real Estate Women's Network that I'm a very active member on. And we look back and we chuckle about this. I was pregnant, climbing down ladders, going to the bottom of these excavations, and following this woman that also now has become one of the key mentors in my profession.
I think that's great. I feel like it's not just looking for helpers and finding mentors and accepting both male and female mentors wherever they come. I feel like I've seen men in my industry also understand sometimes that they can amplify the things that you're saying, or that they can back you up, and that they can get you through through somebody who is either a gatekeeper or is not listening, or being an obstacle in some way. And to that end, I've already heard some obstacles that some of you have faced in some ways that you've gotten through them. But in each of your industries, what are some of the strategies that you've used to overcome those obstacles or those gatekeepers, the people who kind of are the blockers?
I love that you use the word amplification, Jess. I think that's huge, not because I'm awkwardly just talking into this microphone that I always struggle with, but
Why do you think I did stand up? I did stand up so I could stand and be the only one with a microphone.
I think there are obstacles, I think, for a lot of women to find their voice, particularly you walk into a room, maybe you don't feel like you have as much experience, maybe you're one of very few women in the room, and I've sought out, and whether they were mentors or not, but particularly a lot of men that I felt like I could trust and I could plant a seed. I have this idea. If I can get a little bit of buy-in, I can use their voice to help amplify the idea. And I think there's a lot of, I see some basketball coaches in the room, but a lot of layup opportunities out here that can be huge. And I think like partnering with people, there's a lot of people who like to create connections and friendships. And when we can use that throughout our lives to help lay up to each other, lift each other up, I think there is a tremendous amount of additional work that we can do when we make those connections.
In the military, and I joined law enforcement, as I said before, there were very few women, especially when I joined in '79. In my criminal investigative unit, I was the only female agent. So I was constantly being deployed for many missions. My mission for the unit was protective service, but whenever there was a case that involved a female or a child, I would automatically, "Oh, you're it." I'm like, why am I it? Why? Because they said, "Because you're a chick." And I said, just because I'm a chick doesn't mean I'm gonna, do okay. But I was probably the youngest in my unit, and I was called by a number of the older guys a young whippersnapper. So, it was a constant battle, but I did use a lot of comedy, and growing up the way I did in my family, it made me strong enough to stand up to these guys and talk to them, and always pushing forward. I was number 3 on the list for Winthrop Police Department, and you go through the whole physical, you go through everything, and the last thing they do is a certain test. Well, I popped positive for pregnancy. So they said, you're pregnant. I'm like, I do now. So they had to they said they would hold my position, and then I would have to go through the whole thing again, but then I had to have my spleen removed, and it's like, oh, you can't be on the department. So that steered me to a different way, back into the law field, in law offices. But it's just constantly always trying to prove myself, prove that I could do it, solve crime better than any of the guys, more detail-oriented than a lot of the other cops that were out there, a lot of the other investigators, and just not afraid to take the challenge to go the extra mile. And it was always constantly go, go, go. I didn't have a problem with my peers. It was the older generation that just didn't accept the females. It is what it is. I mean, I ask the difficult questions every single day in my job, and people tell me their whole life story. Veterans who've gone through hell and back tell me their story. And they share a lot with me. And I have the empathy to handle it, to understand them, because to be in my role, you had to be a combat vet. And like one vet said to me, he said, well, the difference is that we were shot at. I'm like, okay, but we're both here, so it's all good. So we're here. It's a reason for it, right? So you just keep pushing, 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 and standing your ground and making those connections. Sometimes you have to kill them with kindness. I do that a lot, but it's just being open to their ideas, being open to everybody's ideas, not just the opposite sex, but everybody's ideas. So, and breaking those old-fashioned barriers, especially with different cultures and whatnot. So, Julie, you got something?
It's the obstacles are hard because a lot of times they're subtle too. I think in my career, I have just had to get comfortable with who I am and what my personality is. So, sitting in a conference room, the books about how to exert yourself will say, lean in and talk. And I know that I don't want to be the first one to talk. I'm a much better person sitting back and listening and then distilling it all down at the end, or maybe even coming back or going to one of the leaders later with an idea. I think I realized pretty early on that I just kind of had to be me, and if being me didn't fit into that culture, I was privileged enough that I knew there were other companies I could go to, but I never really had to. Like, eventually kind of people adjusted to me and realized that my value was sitting back and listening. And so it took me a long time to figure that out, but I think, you have to eventually, we all get comfortable with kind of what our style is and have to realize that that's how we are and that's how we best function, so.
I just wanted to add a little bit of what Ro was stating. Sometimes it's difficult when you are used to your own way, and with a new administration, it's hard to implement certain changes. So a lot of times it's knowing who you are, making sure you go with the priorities of the governor and the administration, and try to implement those changes. And if the individual, or for example, that particular state agency doesn't agree upon, you bring it back to the people higher up, and they do listen to you. Because I'm the type of person, I'm very outspoken. I am Latina, when I'm in the room. But I'm very outspoken, and I like to make sure that if I have an idea at that moment, I raise it. And I'm being very blessed that they do listen to me, and they listen to my ideas and those changes. But sometimes it's hard. And sometimes as a woman, you do feel like, is it enough? And you should always realize and tell yourself, yes, it is enough. You're doing what you can. And if what you cannot do it, just think about a different way to make sure those changes do get implemented. I do want to give a little example too, because when I graduated from Holy Cross, I served on various different boards, and I was usually the first Latina, and in that particular board, and in a male-nominated, that sometimes you're the only one. And that is perfectly fine. Being the only one is fine, because it will take you to be that only one person to open the door for other women to come into that door and making those changes. So for any young person sitting here today that you want to get involved and be on that board, do it. Because you want to make sure that your perspective and your voice is valuable to making those changes. And being in boards is very powerful because you're making a lot of changes in the move. So being the only one, it doesn't matter. You can be impactful in many, many ways.
Currently, right now in high school, at some point I kind of just looked around and I was like, wow, I am one of the only females in this class, much less a person of color. And I kind of was just wave of realization. But I kind of realized that in a way what all women today are saying is there's really power in numbers, but also knowing yourself and really speaking up about what you know. And I think last year, sophomore year, I was the only woman, sophomore girl in my AP computer principles class. And of course I had guy friends in that class, but I do think reaching out and not being kind of shy, which is hard, a lot of the times is really important. But I feel what really helped me in that is that ever since I was a kid, I was kind of just the way that the years worked. I was one of the only women in my community at that time, so I always kind of grew up with guys, and I kind of realized from a young age that I don't really fit in and that I'm always going to be looked at I'm always going to be looked at as lesser than as a woman. So once I kind of got over that, even though it's not something really to get over, I realized that like I am a woman and I am a person of color at the end of the day. And a lot of times when I'm communicating with people, I don't realize that. And when I do, I realize, wow, like I really need to change the way that I'm speaking. And with that realization, I now understand like the role that I play in these communities, and it really helped me with like kind of raising my voice and making sure that if I see something, I'm gonna say something. But yeah, that's just been my.
I'll share something that's particular to venture. So I think I started out by saying that 1% of the $150 billion that went out last year went to women. And what does that mean and how does it all change? So change is coming, it's slow but steady. Representation really matters. I just want to double click on what Jarlene said. I think the stat, I looked it up this morning, 17% of women in investing, 17% of investors are women. That's the most recent stat. And so that is, leaps and bounds from where we were even 5 years ago. At my firm, I think about healthcare for women. So if you think about innovation and ideas coming forward that are meant to improve the health of women, you can't imagine how many times I meet founders who say, who've met investors who've said, oh, I have to ask my wife, is menopause a problem? Or is pelvic floor, what does that even mean? Is that a problem to be solved? And so when you have women who sit in my seat and have, check writing abilities to deploy capital and give these other women, capital to build their ideas, then change comes slowly but surely. But it's kind of like what gets me up every day, and gets me excited about continuing to push forward. We just need more women to join the ranks and then rise through, so.
Slam. Good night, everyone. But yeah, I think that it's as much as you can do to expand the diversity of the makeup of whatever place that you work in. I have been in a positive position that I've been able to help make hiring decisions, and I have the support from my boss to try and bring more voices into our writers' room. We create the narrative for video games, so we are generating stories about people, and having more representation is just going to create more stories. It's going to be able to represent more people, but we can't really do it as well when we are any just one type of person. So as much as you can expand or hire a more diverse set of people, as much as you can. It makes your company better, it makes more money, it makes better stories. It's just, it does do the work in a lot of ways. But in that way, I've also, I have seen that I've got blind spots myself. I work with a lot of people who are 22, and I'm not 22 anymore. I'm a different age. And so I've had to change some of my language and realize things and understand different viewpoints. And when I was beginning in my job, and in my career path, I just felt like, oh, well, I always have to explain to people what a lesbian is, and I always have to explain to everybody what my experience is. That's my job. But I think that now there's at least a recognition that you can become mentally tired, that there is an extra mental burden on all of us. And I think some of you you all have definitely done the work, but I think trying to find other people to talk to and communities to talk to and ways to give yourself a break is important. Have you all found that? How do you take care of your mental health while doing all of this work?
Very important. With this administration working for the governor, since she was Attorney General now for 6 years, she understands the value of family. And even my direct supervisor understands that. So when I was pregnant and I had some difficulty in my pregnancy, I had a fibroid, including with my baby growing in my womb. So my boss was extremely understandable. And once I delivered my first child, I had a much flexibility in understanding, hey, I'm gonna give you 100% at my job, and I'm gonna work triple the amount of time because I have a job at home too with 2 little ones. And making sure that I have my family times is important. So there's certain events that I say I cannot attend because it's my child's birthday party, or it's important, it's an important time. And a couple months ago, I was going to Disney World for my first time with my family, and the governor texted me, and I said, Governor, I'm going to Disney World. She said, enjoy it. It's important to take those time in those moments. So having that supervisor and the boss that knows that it's taking time with your family is your de-stress moment, because those beautiful moments with your kids do fast pass. They fast extremely fast, and those moments you want to create it with them. So for me, myself, my flexibility and my time to de-stress is having time with my family. Family is important for myself. Now, to de-stress, I have taken this year to make sure I do self-care days. So my Thursday, I'm taking a cardio class here in the town of Wakefield. It's super fun, it's different, and I'm saying this is my time to de-stress. So I kind of block my calendar to make sure those moments are there, but I do prioritize if there's an important time that I need to be at a certain event or staffing or advancing the governor and stuff. I do take those priority, but it's important. It's important. Your life is extremely important, and we're living moments right now that your mental health is extremely important. So you have to learn how to balance yourself, make sure you continue to love yourself in every stages, and make sure you always prioritize what you love. You're still gonna do the amazing job, but it's important that you take care of yourself. Because if your whole body and your whole being and your whole mind is 100%, then you're still gonna be happy doing what you love.
I just run and read. That's
At the same time?
not at the same time.
Okay.
But that's how I've always, I need to go running. I do a lot of rage running, but I do run. And I just always have to be in a book, and that just seems to balance me.
I'm not very good at it at all. My job is basically 24/7, and I work on every vacation. I do have mini trips that I take with my kids or my best friends or my sisters overnight, and they all understand. If I get a call, I'm going to answer it. I said I'll relax more when I retire. I have many trips planned, and I try and not answer the phone, but especially with the mental health crises that we have right now, when I have an officer calling me and saying, hey, it's so-and-so, we're going to take them in, and we need your help, and I have to be there for them. And veteran suicide is way too high. All suicide is way too high, but veteran suicide is huge. It's on the rise, and I just haven't found that work-life balance. I'm going to be 63, and I'm still working, but one day I'm going to retire. My kids don't think I'm ever going to retire, but I am going to retire. I have, like I said, I have some trips planned. I do plan. I'm going to Europe, and my kids are like, we're not getting any international calling plans, so you can't. So that they're forcing me. So I do go out. I go out to a lot of dinners. I have my cocktails, but I'm on the clock 24/7, and that's just the nature of the job. It's just the nature of the job. So.
I'll share that I haven't even talked about my 2 boys that I adore. They are my sunshine, 11 and 15, and they keep me really young and grounded, and they like to watch me jump off cliffs with my skis on. And one day I will not be able to do that with them, and I cherish the fact that they push me to have these adventures. And I love that a lot of us have talked about the importance of being really authentic. And I think, like, as a leader in business, it's one thing that I think is really important is to talk about these times, especially as women, openly about how we take this separation from work and we really let ourselves recharge and be really transparent. Because I think that there are, and I'm sure, Ro, you feel this way, is that the grind of like everybody going and expecting, and it's really not a fair expectation. We all need time to take breaks, and whether it's mental, physical health, friends, anything that fills your bucket, and the more that as leaders that we can talk about it, how important that is, so that we can come back and feel like we can tackle the next day and the really hard next jerky thing that somebody's going to say to us, and have the capacity to take that on is really important. And I think I worked with a lot of like these super robots at the beginning of my career that they didn't even talk about the fact that they had families or bills to pay or anything else. They just wanted to work. And I think that's been a big culture shift that's been really important. And I know I get a lot of feedback from my team about how transparent everyone is about raising families at the same time that they're trying to do the hard work, has been something that they feel helps them breathe easier and feel like they've got the capacity to do it again the next day.
I feel like I'm like one of the first generations that's really had mental health be a more open conversation. So like many times throughout the years, I've heard like students among me that talk about therapy, and I feel like that conversation is way more open, and they don't look at you like you're crazy when you're going through something. So I feel like that, in a sense, is really nice to have just like a community that you're able to talk about these sort of issues with. So I'm very lucky with that. But honestly, like I haven't really found a way to cope with all like just the classes that I have that are really rigorous, and among other things, trying to lead a club. But I do think that a lot of the times I am kind of in a place where I take care of somebody else's mental health and they take care of mine. And I think that having like a community that you can really trust helps a lot with that kind of stuff, and just like an open relationship with family, like my mother and a lot of the girls that I'm friends with, really helps in these types of situations.
All the brilliance has been said. Maybe I'll just comment that, I spent, 15 years seeking work-life balance, and I can really only say that in the last 5 or so, I've come to come to terms with the fact that I love my work, I love my life. It's not really balance on any given day, right? Like I'm traveling, work is an emergency. I fit it in the way that makes sense for me, and setting my own boundaries. And I think everyone has to find what that is for them. And I love that the conversation has evolved so much from when I started my career, to your point of did you have a family? Did you have kids? We didn't always talk about it back then, and we do so much more openly now. So that's pretty awesome to see.
Yep, I believe that. And I think that the open conversation around mental health from the younger generation is really great. And even if you aren't finding work-life balance, when I have this thing where I just believe that I need to respond to everything immediately, whether it is an email or something somebody has said or anything, my mouth is on fire. But I've also learned that I can walk away from things and take a moment within the job, and that it can help me a bit, both in not saying things to people that I later regret, which I've done, but also to realize that you can give yourself even moments in your job to take a break before you dive into the next thing, or you respond to something that somebody has said. So that is what I will lend to that conversation. What advice would you give to young people coming up and their career choices, and what they want to be, what decisions they might make?
So it's funny that I'm starting out as being the young person, but
Yes, all of this advice is for you, so just be.
I kind of feel a bit confident holding it up just because I am sort of a mentor to the girls that I kind of like teach. And amongst my friends, I'm kind of known as like the advice giver. And besides that, I am thinking about pursuing psychology in college, and I feel like the topic of like just mental health is like really important in spaces that haven't been explored yet. But besides that,
Well, for you, what
Oh,
would-
yes.
what advice would you
Okay,
give,
yes.
and if you also have any advice you'd like to hear, or things that you'd like for people to tell you about directions.
yeah, sorry about that.
No
but
worries.
yeah, the advice I would like to give is just like piggybacking on my last response, which is like seeing something and saying something and not letting it just like stay inside your heart, and just thinking that like just because I think it sort of stems from just because you're a woman and you're afraid of like kind of raising this and being seen as like, oh, you're just being over dramatic for this type of situation. Why do you always have to kind of bring up the woman card or like the race card? So I kind of accepted the fact that bringing light to these issues means that you have to be the one that's not fun anymore. So I think that's an advice that I give to a lot of girls and a lot of my friends, is that like you're not there to please people, you're there to make sure that your voice is heard in a situation. So that's it. But for the question that I have, which I've been thinking about a lot, is just like based on like work-life balance. Like whenever I think about the future, I kind of think about like I have to finish college, I have to do grad school, I have to do this, I have to do that, and then like plus like where does like kids or like marriage fit in between that? And it's kind of like giving me like a little bit of anxiety from now. Like high school is already hard, but like it's gonna get so much worse. So that's like kind of the question that I had. But yeah.
So, flexibility. Don't be so stringent with a timeline. I always knew I needed to finish my degree. I had 2 classes to finish, and there was a 20-something year break in between. So, yeah, and I went back. So you got to be flexible. I've always had fun in life, so the work-life balance, I always remember to have fun, no matter where I go, no matter, given the situation. You have a goal in sight, yeah, it's there, but things happen. Like I had 4 kids while I was in the Army. And I was deployed multiple times while I was in the Army. And one instance where I had just my daughter, and I was deployed to D.C. for a mission. And I had a pager back then because we didn't have cell phones. And I got a page from the school, and my partner was the Malden police chief at the time. And he said, well, who's calling you? And I said, it's the school. He said, the baby school? I said, she's not a baby anymore. She's in kindergarten. And they were all there, her uncle. And I said, let me call the school. And they said, well, can you come pick her up? I said, I can't tell you where I am, but I'm at least a 12-hour journey. But I can't tell you where I am. And he was calling my husband, because he did have a cell phone, and I took the phone from him. I told my husband he was fired, and to take our daughter to my parents' house, and he could go and visit her. And so you got to have goals in mind, but things happen in between. So you want a family. You want to be there for you. Always be there for your kids. Always, 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 okay? Always be the one that they call. My kids always knew wherever they were, all they had to do was pick up the phone and say, I don't like where I am, come get me. And their friends were the same. So, and I've instilled that in them. So one night, it was like 1 o'clock in the morning, I don't sleep well, and I heard my keys coming out of my coat pocket from upstairs. And so I run down, I'm like, to my oldest son, where are you going? He said, oh, my Andrea's in trouble, I have to go get her. I said, okay, go ahead. So always be the one, and always be the driver of your kids. So, and pretend you're not listening, but you are listening to every single word that they say, because you hear everything. And be the one, so my son came home from college, my oldest son, he went to the U, he's a nurse right now, and he said, I'm going to a party. I said, where's the party? He said, I don't have to tell you, I'm 21. I said, okay, but when you get into trouble, I need to know where to go. And he was my trouble kid, but chased him everywhere. And his friend came in, and I said, what's going on? He says, oh, we're going to a party. I said, I heard. Where's the party? And so he said, oh, it's at Nick's down the point. I'm like, oh, thanks for telling me. And so my son said, why did you just tell my mother where we were going? And then he turned around to his friend and he said, because, Joseph, it's your mother we're calling when we have to get us. So always be there for them. Always be the one to be able for them to talk to openly without judging. You can roll your eyes later. And just try to be flexible. You got to have that flexibility because things happen all the time, okay? All the time, things happen. So
Yeah.
life happens. Life happens big time.
Yeah, I think that that's true. I think that this will be our last question. So if you each want to go down the line and give one line of advice to the future, make it good. Okay, you start.
You know what? I think it's find a good partner. Like life is hard. Life comes
Yeah.
at you, and you know, I've been very lucky to have somebody who, you know, when I was traveling 4 or 5 days a week for the corporate world, who was with the kids, and yeah, they ate M&Ms for breakfast, but I wasn't home to complain about that. So you know, you just. I think it's fine, whether it's a partner or a parent or just, you know, somebody who can just be in this journey with you, and because it's hard to do alone.
Go with the flow. Like I said, be flexible. Go with the flow. Things happen. Life happens. It doesn't always go the way you planned. It's not always perfect. I'm going to be 63. When my mom was 63, I thought she was old. I don't think I'm old. So my kids tell me I don't act old. I don't act like a 63-year-old is supposed to. I'm like, I don't even know what that means. But just remember to have fun and don't be afraid to delve into an area that, so female VSOs is the fastest growing demographic right now in my veteran world. Female veterans are the fastest growing demographic. So don't be afraid to break through those barriers because the world is yours.
Beautiful said, Rose. Ro. One advice I would give a young person sitting here today is never allow anyone to tell you you will never make it anywhere. Because the only person that can limit you is yourself. You are a change maker, and you're here for a reason. One day when I was in elementary school, somebody said, you will never make it anywhere. And I went to my mother, and she said, mi amor, mi hija, my darling, my daughter, you will make it. The sky's the limit. So every room I walk, I always tell myself, I'm here for a reason. When I got accepted to Holy Cross and was the first person in my family to attend college, I said, I'm here for a reason. And that reason has led me many open doors to be where I am today. So if I can make it and I can make my dreams come true, you can make it as well.
I'd say simply be intellectually curious and open-minded to exploring things that, or taking risks that maybe you otherwise, you know, wouldn't have been open to before. That's been very much a driver of opportunities, new friendships, community. So.
I had a mentor say to me once as I was stressing and thinking about resigning at probably 22 from something that felt like it was going to be the end of the world, but really wasn't. He said to me, when you walk towards your fear, it loses its power. And I say that a lot to myself, is that there's a lot of things that you worry about, or you can worry about and make really big, but really when you kind of tackle them head on, they're usually not that big. And the next day is a chance to make a lot of different decisions and pivot from whatever the choice was that maybe you feel like doesn't feel comfortable. And I think some of that freedom that I found, it comes with surrounding yourself by people who make you feel safe, so that you feel safe to walk towards the edge and try something different. And it's your wingman, it's your partner, it's your best friend at work. Surround yourself with those people. I say that to the young people here, is like, when you walk into a job interview, do people act like they really trust each other? Do they act like if they push each other, they're gonna be there to help catch you? Are they gonna be there to also raise the champagne to celebrate the victories? But you really need both people with you. And I think that's really been a secret to life, and it probably isn't that big of a secret. But it took me a little while to realize that, is that you need the safety of the people that are around you so that you feel like that you can take chances. Drive fast.
And I would just say sometimes quit. And I don't mean quit your dreams or quit going, but there will be some situations that you are in and your gut knows that it is a bad situation and that it is draining you, and you are allowed to walk away from that without giving up your dreams. You can continue on to your dreams, you can achieve them, and you can walk away from a toxic situation. I've done it. I've done it one time and it felt really hard, but in the end, it was the right thing to do, and my gut knew it. And my friends backed me up, and then later on, everybody said, "Oh yeah, everybody knew that was terrible." So, but it's sometimes your gut knows. But I want to thank everybody here. You all are so wonderful, and I think that is our time. So thank you all for your words, your thoughts. Thank you all.
I just want to point to the screen, and it's also in your program. We're at that time of the year that we're looking for new commissioners. Please consider becoming a member of the HRC. We do a lot of fun work, good work, and I think you'll find it very rewarding. And I see some of past commissioners here in the room tonight, and others, and I'm hoping that I will see some of you. I will see your applications this year. And thank you so much for coming, and come and have some cookies.